Welcome everybody. I'm sorry we're a bit late today, just the way it happens sometimes. At our ordinary council meeting of the Alpine Shire, I'd like to invite Acting CEO Mr. Jeremy to begin the proceedings with our recording and live streaming of council meetings.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All council meetings are filmed with both video and audio being recorded. Video is focused on a specific area, however audio from the entire room is captured. Question time will still be held, however questions must be submitted in writing prior to the meeting. By submitting a question, you consent to your question being read aloud and recorded. In common with all narrative during council meetings, verbal responses to congratulations, obituaries and question time will not be recorded in the written minutes. The reasoning behind recording council meetings is, of course, to hold us more accountable and to improve transparency of council decision making to our community. The full meeting is being streamed live on council's YouTube channel, which is Alpine Shire Council, and will also be available on the YouTube channel shortly after this meeting.
Acknowledgement of traditional custodians and recognition of all people. Please stand.
The Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we are now on. We also acknowledge those people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community and strive to make wise decisions that will improve the quality of life for all.
Item 3, confirmation of minutes. 3.1, ordinary council meeting M5 on the 2nd of June 2020. Thank you, John Forsyth. Seconded. All those in favour? Carried. Recommendation 3.2, special council meeting. Dennis. Second by Councillor Keeble. All those in favour? So moved. Thank you. Apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Peter Roper, our Mayor, and Mr Charlie Bird, our Chief Executive Officer. So we have Mr Will Jeremy standing in and myself. Also an apology currently from Councillor Pearce, who will join us as soon as he can. Obituaries and congratulations from my
left. I have a congratulations here. I hope to one day emulate this feat. We had a letter from Andrea Higgins about her parents, Dot and Noel Higginson, who reside in Toowoomba South on the Kira Valley Highway. They've been long-time community members, and they're thrilled to advise us as Andrea that they will be celebrating their 60th year of marriage on the 18th of June. They would be joined by 3 of their children and extended families. Luckily, they won't be locked down. One of their son lives in Queensland, so he won't be able to attend. And there will be dinner on the 20th of June. So this is a letter from the Alpine Shire. I'll read it out if I may, Mayor. Acting Mayor. Deputy Mayor, my apologies. Dear Mr and Mrs Higgins, letter of congratulations. It is with great pleasure that we extend our warmest congratulations to you both as you celebrate your diamond wedding anniversary on the 18th of June 2020. Your anniversary signifies many years of caring and sharing and of a strong partnership. On behalf of my fellow councillor and staff at the Alpine Shire, we send you our best wishes as you celebrate this special occasion with family and friends, especially during these trying times, and we hope you get to share many more happy years together. Councillor Peter Roper.
P.S. we're on obituaries and congratulations. Do you have any?
Yes, I'd just like to say congratulations to my dear youngest son and his partner, who had a little baby last week. So, to a little little boy.
Increasing the population of the Alpine Shire.
Still 2 in the oven later in the year.
How many grandchildren?
This is number 8.
Number 8. Congratulations.
That's including 2 great-grandchildren.
Wow, congratulations.
And congratulations to them. They're both beautiful together, and their little baby I can't think of his name, but I'll learn it eventually.
With age,
Thank you.
I can imagine with so many.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Janice.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think it might be easy Chair for the going to get just recently we had a Myrtleford SES member who was decorated with the Emergency Services Medal and Mr. John Hennessy. And I was just reading a few quotes that he made to the paper, and I think it emulates what the SES and our volunteer services are all about in our region, and in fact all over the state. And Mr. Hennessy is very much a humble man. He said, "I'm just a little wheel in a very big machine." And he said, "When I got the award, I thought about my father and his value of mateship and cooperation. He used to say, in life, if what you do has value, whether it's school, sport or business, you don't need to tell people." And he just gets on, just one of our many, many volunteers who gets on and does the job on behalf of their community. So congratulations to John on his emergency services.
Backbone of the... And...
Councillor Forsyth.
Thank you. General congratulations, I think, to the Alpine Shire population that we have remained, as yet, COVID-free. So, generally, congratulations. I think when you do travel around and you're out there and you're in the streets and what have you, people are really observing now this physical distancing. So, let's hope that our visitors that were here over the holidays do the same.
No, I'd like to just add a little bit of congratulation in a similar vein to Councillor Forsyth. I spent yesterday at Mount Hotham and working, and I was incredibly impressed at the way the in there and managing the distancing. But I was also, I think, across those alpine areas, the Dinner Plain, Hotham, the way the businesses have stepped up and adapted and are trying hard to make it work for the visitors more so than themselves. I don't think any of them are going to make any money out of this, but they're making it work so the resort works and continues to work and is still somewhere nice to go next year, hopefully, or when the restrictions are eased or removed. So congratulations to all those people who are trying so hard. Declarations by councillors of conflict of interest.
I do have a conflict of interest, Chair. Item number
8.3.1, I think.
I will at that stage.
Public questions. We have 3, and I will tackle them in the order upon which they arrived. The first one is from Trish Cross from Mount Beauty, and I'll just read the question. Dear Alpine Shire Council, can the following question be listed on questions on notice? Several weeks ago, a number of community bench seats were removed from areas in Mount Beauty, Toowoomba and Toowoomba South. No information was provided to the community as to why this occurred. This resulted in almost 40 comments and conspiracy theories on the local Facebook page. My question is, why was a notice not posted on the community Facebook page, which is called What's Happening in Mount Beauty and Toowoomba South, or better still, the Alpine Shire Facebook page? My suggestion is, any proposed changes to community assets need to be announced prior to the event happening. In the interest of keeping all residents informed, this would be an easy exercise for the Alpine Shire Council to do prior to the workers carrying out the removal. I know why they were removed because I emailed and asked. When I got the reply, I posted it on the community Facebook page. The response is, I will...
Yes. Thank you, Chair. So apologies for the lack of communication around the temporary removal of a number of seats in the Kiewa Valley. As you're aware, the seats were removed from their location in order to carry out routine maintenance on them. It is a more efficient and safer way that we can achieve a better result by removing them and doing them in the depot rather than in situ. When planning future maintenance activities, we will ensure that the team gives consideration to sharing an update on Council's Facebook page when these works are likely to happen and in the interest of the community. As I said, that'll be on our Facebook. We'll provide an update as well of that.
Thank you. That was Mr. Michael Buckley, who's our Acting Director of Assets, as our current Director of Assets is Acting CEO. Thank you. And just to emphasise that we will be putting something on our Facebook page now about what's happened, and apologise for the understanding. Question 2 came from Jane Sullivan. Can Council spell out all the grants it has received in the last 12 months and how it will resource their timely delivery? With so many projects due for delivery, is Council ensuring the CEO is able to recruit contract managers to deliver the projects on time? And I will ask Mr. Jeremy to give us some information about the grants in the first instance.
Thank you, Chair. In the last 12 months, the following infrastructure grants have been awarded to Council. So Roads to Recovery, $710,000. This is a federal government grant, and this was allocated in the budget to a range of road renewal projects. Mount Beauty Airport upgrade, so that's $1.55 million from the federal government. Toowoomba Caravan Park upgrade, $2.1 million from the state government. Dinner Plain activation project, $500,000 from the state government. And recently, Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Programme, we've received $710,000 from the federal government, which will be allocated to road and community infrastructure projects. All of the projects that we're budgeted to deliver this year, plus all the projects that have subsequently been added to the programme, apart from the most recent Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Programme, all have project managers assigned to them at this point. So we're in a good position at the start of the financial year to be able to deliver these. We do, however, have a resignation in our team, so the manager of that department has recently resigned, so we're in the process of recruiting a new manager to that department. So we are well set up at this stage to be able to deliver the programme of works we've got over the coming 12 months. A question I received earlier was, what is the total value of the capital works programme that we're delivering this year? And it's approximately $12 million that we've got planned for delivery over the next 12 months through our capital works programme.
Thank you. That's an enormous capital works program. And
comment, Madam Chair. Mr. Jeremy, with the current situation with COVID, do you think that will have any substantial effect on delivery of capital works?
The answer at this stage, Councillor Janice, is we're not quite sure. So it depends what the restrictions are and for how long they last. So we've weathered it relatively well through the bushfires and through the initial COVID restrictions. We found that our contractors were both willing and able to continue working through that period. So we saw some impact. Our ability to deliver some of the projects was impacted, but not the very significant impact that some other sectors of the business community have seen. How we fare going forward really depends on what those restrictions are, how widespread they are, how long they last, and to what extent they impact on our contractors that we would normally be engaging to deliver these kind of works.
Well, I think what I'd also like to say on this matter is that it goes to the goodwill of our staff and our contractors, that good working relationship that we have. This is probably the third year in a row, perhaps the fourth year in a row, we've done double-digit capital works programs. For such a small council, that's a real big ask for our staff, for the amount of staff that we have. So I suppose it's a little bit late, but I think our staff need to be well acknowledged for the work they do and how they carry it out in some difficult circumstances. And there's a lot of pressure put on staff, sometimes by community members they want to see the job done, and they don't often realise the amount of work that's actually in the pipeline getting done or being prepared to be done at the time. So, yep, it's great that we're getting all this money from state and federal governments, and we're trying as a council those projects to deliver.
May I add to that, Chair? I agree with Councillor Janus and everything he says there. I think from memory, this year, this year's budget capital works was in the $8 million to start with, and then we got those big ticket items at 2.1 at Toowoomba, the airfield, and the other 720, which brings it up to 12 million. Would that be right? Was that, or those ones on top of the 12 million?
So we've started in our adopted budget from council. We've got $8.6 million worth of capital projects. So subsequent to that budget being finalised, we've received confirmation of additional grant funding, which will take us up to the 12 million for this current financial year. So just reflecting on Councillor Janus's comments as well. So the financial year just passed, we were less than the double digits, so we had a slightly quieter year last year than the previous few, but the year prior to that we were up in double digits, and the year prior to that. So our largest capital works delivery programme was $13.1 million we delivered, and we delivered 100% of that programme during the year that it was planned.
So I think Alpine Shire's success at getting the job done is reflected in our success with funding as well. People who get runs on the board supported. But I also wanted to point out that the Alpine Shire Council has delegated authority to the CEO to be sure that there is capacity to recruit project managers to enable delivery of projects. Thanks for the question, Jane. Our third question is from Mary Pike, and it refers to a commercial about Brighton Surrounds that has been aired on local TV. Commercial TV, sorry. I've just seen it very briefly, once, just before this meeting. Have the councillors viewed the latest promotion for Brighton Surrounds, now being shown quite regularly on commercial TV? If so, have they noticed the ridiculous speed with which the other Shire towns' locations flash across the screen? Anyone not from the area would not even be able to read them all. When the tourism promotion became Brighton Surrounds some years ago now, there was much discussion regarding Bright having all, or at least the majority of the promotion push. This would now appear to be the case. What will the council do to make these promotions more equitable, even if this only means slowing down the scrolling? So we've talked with our marketing people about the option for changing the advertisement, and there's set time slots, 15 and 30 seconds, so slowing down the scrolling is not an approach stage, but we do note the concerns that are raised. I wasn't involved, but when the Brighton Surrounds tagline was put forward, it was a professionally developed theme and approach, and Bright was being used as the focus for the Alpine Shire, so that continues. And whilst I recognise that the words do go through quite quickly, they are there, and at the moment that's the best we can do. Thank you, Mary, for your question. Are there any other comments?
Are they modern and relevant to the adversity?
As I said, I've seen it very briefly once. I thought it showed some beautiful places, and then it said Brighton Surrounds, and then it just had a whole lot of other names. It did go through quite quickly. I think it was a bit slower than subliminal. I think that if people get to the right area, it'll work. No, they're new. Yeah. This one's new. No, I don't think it's outdated. I don't think so. What, have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen them, but I'm probably agreeing that if we're watching them, we know what's going on, and it can go as quick as it likes, and we'll still follow them. Out of date, maybe is it time to?
I think they're new. So they'll taken on notice for the next time advertisement. Questions, comments? No.
I'd comment on that, Madam Chair. I think the target for the advertisement is for people from outside of our region. When they do come here, right, does fill up, as it does quite often. People want to get that quiet space and they want to explore our area. And I think we have to give people that bit of common sense that, you know, a very busy shopping mall or main street, and they want the peace and quiet, so they'll come out and visit the other townships and surrounding areas, which I've certainly seen in the Littleford area, where we have lots of visitors come and right area.
Thank you, Councillor.
But I take Mary's point.
Yeah, I do too. Okay, presentation of reports by officers. And I will ask Acting Chief Executive Officer Mr Jeremy to start with 8.1.1, contracts approved by the CEO.
Thank you, Chair. There are two contracts that we've noted in the report this week for approval which have been approved by the CEO. So the first is the design and construction of BMX and jump tracks at Pioneer Park in Bright. The winning tender was Synergy Trails, and their value was $80,000 plus GST. And the second was the Rotary Pines preliminary landscaping, and the winning tenderer was McPherson's Earth Moving Contractors, and the tendered price was $105,982 plus GST.
Was that second, Councillor Napstein? Thank you. John Forsyth. Kitty Napstein. All those any comments, John?
No comments. It's straightforward business as usual.
It's well on its way. I see the Rotary Pines.
Can we take it to the vote? All those in favour? Against? Carried. 8.2, Acting Director Assets, Michael Buckley. Dinner Plain Village Detailed Designs, item 8.2.1.
Thank you, Chair. This report is about Dinner Plain Village Detail Design. Introduction: the purpose of the report is to seek council adoption of the finalised Dinner Plain Village Detail Designs. The background: council commenced development of the Dinner Plain Village Detail Designs in 2018-19 financial year in response to requests from the Dinner Plain community. The development of the DPVDD, I'll say, followed a process of engagement which introduced 4 rounds of community consultation prior to completion of the detailed designs. Council secured funding through the state government's Bushfire Tourism and Business Fund 2020 to enable the Scrubbers End precinct works to be implemented. Based on further round of engagement with the community, the detailed designs have now been finalised and the priority for delivering the remaining components of the work has been established. Financial resources implications: the adoption of the finalised plan does not commit council resources or funding. Implementation of future projects will be subject to council's annual budget setting process and to the availability of suitable external funding opportunities which align with the project objectives. The recommendation that council adopts the finalised Dinner Plain Village Detail Designs, July 2020, and 2, adopts the following priority order for implementing projects. A would be the Toboggan Run and Mountain Bike Trail Hub, financial year 2021 to 21-22. B, Scrubbers End Hut Hub, financial year 2020-21 to 21-22. C was the exit bus stop 26 to 2033. Recreation Reserve 26 to the year 2033.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Janus and Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Mr. Buckley, for that. I wasn't. Hopefully, councillors have read the document and briefing sessions on this. This is a well thought out plan with the community consultation that's taken place over time, and the feedback forms and the responses, I think, match well together. Not everybody's going to get everything that they want. I note that the time frame is for the 2021 right up until after 2030 33. So there's a number of projects up there. Some of these are subject to weather conditions, so that we can't, do certain things over certain periods of time. And I think that the order that they are in is logical, knowing the place up there, that Toboggan Run is just an absolute positive thing for families, and a little bit of fun play up there for the children. The Scrubbers hub certainly needs upgrading. The exit bus stop, all those things up there in that order there, I think are spot on. So hoping that the Dinner Plain community up there are satisfied with that, with the decision and the final plans. It'll be a great asset for up there, not just for the snow season, but looking into the green times when we want people to come up there to visit and enjoy that beautiful scenery. It's a unique scenery up there, so I would take that recommendation as it.
Thank you. Councillor Pierce?
I concur with Councillor Janice on the order, etc., and congratulate the administration for doing that.
Any further comment?
Just a question, if I might. Thank you, Chair. And that is point number 3. Note that implementation of future projects will be subject to Council's annual budget setting process and to the availability of suitable external funds. Now, if, for instance, we keep maintaining a large amount of money in the Dinner Plain Fund, or if we can't get rid of it all, would number 3 necessarily come into play or not? Or could we utilise that money? Who could answer that?
Yes.
Ms Cook will be answering when the microphone is functioning.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, that's how it works. Sorry about that. The use of the Dinner Plain Reserve funds is still subject to the normal budget setting processes.
Right.
So at the beginning of the financial year, we go through that process to put a budget together and put it out for public exhibition and then have it adopted by council. Even if it doesn't matter where the funds are coming from in terms of council's funds, the budget setting process is the same. So whether it comes from a ratepayer income stream or whether it's held in reserve, it's the same budget setting process.
So it's not necessarily just reliant upon external funding being available for a particular thing?
It would generally be, it would be reliant on the same decision-making process as
Right.
we undertake for all projects, which some are undertaken through budget time, and there are unbudgeted projects which are prioritised as well, and that comes back to a decision at council.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cook, Director Corporate. Any further comment?
I have a question, if I may, Chair. So there's a priority. It's a priority order. It's an order of priority from now until after 2033. Is there any foreseeable future where the list of priorities would be revisited in the next few years, or is that just like, when you have a policy will be revisited in 2 years' time? Will the list be revisited in a period of time?
Mr Jeremy, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keeble. So as you're aware, each year we review the priority of projects in the project pipeline. So these projects will be added into the project pipeline in the priority that we've shown here and for the tentative delivery time frame. But each year we have the opportunity to see whether the priorities that we have within the project pipeline remain aligned with the community's aspirations and needs as reflected by the councillors. So we certainly have the opportunity to re-look on a annual basis, and more often than annual, each time we look at the project pipeline with you, the councillors, we do have the opportunity to adjust those.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any further comment or questions? Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. The next item is item 8.3.1, which Councillor Keeble has declared a conflict of interest. So he will leave the room at 4:35 p.m. Thank you, Councillor Keeble. And Director Corporate, Ms Cook, will take the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. The purpose of this report is to recommend the extension of the existing lease between the Alpine Shire Council and the Minister for Education of land and buildings located at Munster Drive, Dinner Plain. The revised end date for the lease under this extension is the 3rd of October 2012. The Alpine Shire Council and the Minister for Education entered into a lease of this land and buildings in July of 2004, and this lease had an end date of the 30th of June 2019. The lease is currently operating in holdover arrangements.
So moved.
Councillor Forsyth. Councillor Pearce.
2 questions on this one. This is an extension of the existing lease. Is there such a point in time when you're going to have to renegotiate a whole new lease and maybe for 10, 15, 20 years or something like that?
Prior to October 2021.
Thank you. And the second question is the rental, the lease accruement money?
$90,000 for the 2 seasons of this.
Right, and that ends up in the Dinner Plain Special Fund or not?
So the way that the reserve runs is all income from Dinner Plain is attributed towards the reserve and all expenditure is taken out. Right. So in some way, depending on how that calculation is at the end of the year, then yes, the money goes into the Dinner Plain Reserve Fund.
Thank you.
Councillor Janus.
Thank you. Just a question in relation to maintenance, and maybe Ms Cook might have to go to Jeremy or another officer or taken on notice. Just in relation to the maintenance of the building, it's how old now? Buckley.
Yes, Councillor, I'd have to take that one on notice. Just to
well, I suppose the bottom line of all that is the building in such a condition that it's serviceable over the next couple of years without us having to spend a great deal of money on it, and have we got the right price on the lease?
That we've got building officers that inspect assets for under legislation and reactive and proactive maintenance. We've got a very good engaged group that leases that puts through requests. So happy to take that on notice and look at the overall condition against the ongoing lease. Yes. To your knowledge, we've had no major issues with the building. No,
because of its age, or
no, very minor functional stuff like bulb replacement, servicing, that sort of stuff. Nothing major structural. For that, based on its use, yes, no.
Okay, thank you.
Further comment or questions? Put that to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Stepping out and asking Councillor Keeble to return, thank you. I'm moving on to item 3.3.2. Keeble has returned at 4:39. 3.2 Insurance Portfolio 2021, and Ms Cook again, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. This report outlines Council's insurance portfolios for 2020-21 and seeks Council's approval for the purchase of the recommended insurance policies.
So moved.
Councillor Keeble.
Second.
Councillor Forsyth. Councillor Keeble.
Fairly, book operational like recommendation. There are 4 recommendations there. They're all different insurance. They are for work cover, professional indemnity products, commercial crime insurance, and other portfolios, including community, public and products liability. There are 4 different ones. They're a necessary evil is insurance, and the insurance bill there is up and around the 600,000 mark. And I'm assured that we have as good insurance as we can get in regards to value for money.
Forsyth?
Totally agree. Insurance, if you haven't got it, you need it, and if you've got it, you quite often don't use it.
Councillor Janus.
I'd just like to comment in relation to the LMI scheme that all 79 councils in Victoria now have signed up to that LMI scheme with the MAV, and the insurance game now is hardening extensively, particularly in relation to the natural disasters that we've had. Insurance is becoming harder to get, you know, with our public liability insurance, each claim that we may have, whether it be something that the council has done that causes a great big bushfire, for each of those incidences we're claimed, we are covered up to $600 million, substantially more than what the private sector would normally at the rate. So I think we've done reasonably well here. With that, there have been a number of councils who weren't with the MAV LMI scheme who have now come back on board because the important thing to keep in mind that you know, with the amount of bushfires and other natural disasters that are occurring on a more frequent basis now, that we have our insurance policies up to date, because we're bankrupt paying out things that we should.
Comment?
Thank you. Question to Councillor Janus.
Sure.
Okay.
Councillor Pearce.
When you say harder to get, Councillor Janus, does that mean it's still there but it's more expensive, or?
I think this year some of those councils just haven't been able to get it because the risk profile is just too high.
Pay it out of your own pocket.
Pay it out of your own pocket. I don't think there's too many councils that can afford $600 million.
Councillor Keeble.
Has everyone finished? Sorry, I should ask. To Director of Corporate, I did butt in there pretty quickly. Was there anything in the report there that you really needed to note that you haven't already heard or we need to note?
No, I don't believe so. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Questions? No? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. And we move on to 8.3.3 Audit Committee meeting, which is also Ms Cook.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. The purpose of this report is to present the minutes of the Audit Committee meeting that was held on the 22nd of May 2020. The three key items presented and considered at the committee at that meeting was the investment policy review, which was since adopted by Council at the June Ordinary Council meeting, the new Local Government Act requirements, including changes to risk and audit committees, charters, and a number of the outcomes of that discussion are actually presented in the reports here today as well. Also an overview of Council's climate change actions.
Moved.
Second.
Councillor Keeble, Councillor Pearce. Councillor Keeble.
It's pleasing to see the Audit Committee looking at a range of different reviews and policies, including the climate change actions. The Local Government Act requirements are there, spelt out 2020, so they'll comply with those. And then in regards to climate change actions, it's good to see the Audit Committee looking at what processes Council can take in regards to sustainability going forward into the future.
I concur with Councillor Keeble's comments, and otherwise it's pretty straightforward and understandable.
Any further comments, questions? Put that to the vote. All those in favour? Beautiful. Carried. 8.3.4 Community Satisfaction Survey 2020.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. The annual Community Satisfaction Survey provides a means for Victorian councils to benchmark their community satisfaction with council services and capital projects that have been undertaken. The purpose of this report is to review council's results of this survey. The survey consists of a group of core questions which are asked on behalf of every councillor that participates, plus a suite of optional questions. Alpine Shire Council elects to only ask the core questions in this survey, which provides a sound basis for comparative data across councils and also satisfies our requirements under the Local Government Reporting Framework questionnaire. The 2020 Alpine Shire survey consists of phone interviews with 400 residents, which is selected to match the demographic profile of the Alpine Shire, according to the most recently available Australian Bureau of Statistics estimates. Up to 40% of the survey calls were actually made to mobile phone numbers in this survey. The overall results were for Alpine's result being, I'm going to list the ones where Alpine's result was significantly higher than statewide average. So under making community decisions, being decisions made in the interest of the community, Alpine's result was actually significantly higher than the statewide average, as was the condition of sealed local roads. Alpine's result being significantly higher than the small rural average. We had 3 results that came into this category, being our overall performance as a council, our community consultation and engagement, and our advocacy. Advocacy is defined as lobbying on behalf of our community. The one result where we were significantly lower than the statewide average and the small rural council average was in our customer service result. So it's interesting to note that with our customer service result, with the age groups that had the most amount of contact with council during the past 12 months, the residents who are aged between 35 and 45 years old rated our customer service significantly higher than council statewide averages. However, the residents in the age group of 50 to 64 years rated our customer service much lower than the state average. So we have determined that the areas for focus out of this result really do include customer service, and we have undertaken a number of programs recently, and we are implementing a number of new systems and processes over the next 12 months to address customer service to make it easier for us to provide better customer service. However, we feel that communication with residents in the age groups from 50 to 64 could be reviewed as well and considered, as this age group is consistently more critical of council's performance than the others.
So moved.
Councillor Keeble, Councillor Jones. Councillor Keeble.
I think that was a great snapshot that was provided there. Thank you for that. Certainly the customer service is an area that the Shire has wanted and the councillors have wanted for a long time work on, and people are working on it. And I know that there are some new processes that will be put in place shortly to work on that. I guess given this current review with the 50 to 65 age group, that'll be one to work through. I'm sure people will work through that. But I'm confident that we're on the right path in regards to community consultation and, customer service. I believe we're on the right path.
Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. Ms Cook, do you know how much this costs the council?
It's just over $8,000 a year.
And it's an opt-in, we don't have to do it?
Well, we don't have to do it, but there are a number of there's pieces of data that we need to provide, so we do have to provide under the Local Government Reporting Framework, and without doing the survey we would have to find other ways of getting that data, which would mean undertaking a survey of some description.
Do you find it beneficial in going forward with customer service, etc.? It's not mine.
I think we could undertake a different type of survey that would give us more meaningful data that we could actually rely on for customer service improvement, but it would cost us a lot more money than $8,000 a year to do that work.
Right. With the 50 to 64 age bracket, I think I mooted this before, that is it the way we communicate with them? Is it like, is there a technical issue there, more Facebooky stuff, telephones, rather than
I don't know.
direct?
So we don't get any of that sort of data through the survey. We get the base data that you see in the results, which is simply a drop in the statistical result. We don't get any commentary or comment from anyone who was surveyed. So that's when I say that the data that we get doesn't necessarily provide us with information that would help us improve in the areas where people aren't satisfied. It's because we don't get any of that commentary. So you're right, that is the sort of information that if we had, this person had an interaction with council at this time and they felt that it was not satisfactory and this is the reason why, then that information would provide us with more to work on, to improve. So we do need to look at different ways of surveying our communities or getting that information from our communities.
So we'll try and get a little bit, do a bit of work to getting a little bit more in depth as to why this might be occurring through our own resource.
Yeah, so we have a very large customer service improvement program that we're rolling out across the organisation. It's been in train for a period of time now, and we have a significant upgrade of our IT systems planned over the next 18 months, which will assist as well. So as part of that work, yes, finding more information from our customers on where they're dissatisfied would be an assistance.
I can only say from my own experience, and I'm not being biased, some people might think I am, but when I've had to contact Shire on various issues, I've found that customer service was very good. So perhaps that's because I'm over the age of 64 and not as grumpy anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giannis. Councillor Napperstein. You don't need to turn it on.
I was just going to ask, it's a sample size of 400 residents.
Yeah.
Any way that we can do it better? Because I don't know that 400...
Not through this program. So this is the program that we've signed up to, and it's operated for councils who choose to participate. We could obviously have a different survey program where we hire a different company to undertake the work for us, and then we could stipulate what the sample size would be and undertake that work. That would be a different survey than this one.
I just thought because it's so important and it gives us a bit of feedback on how we're doing. 400 to me, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a basic one.
And interestingly, if you have a look in some of the detail as well, of those 400, only a proportion of those people that respond out of the 400 have had any contact with council. So the sample size is very small.
Yeah,
Yep.
just a comment on this, and that is, look, I think it's a great snapshot each year, and as you've pointed out, that some of the figures are actually required for other reporting instances. The $8,000 spent is probably quite inexpensive to get that information. What I will note is that in every instance except one, we are down on 2018. So what did we do so well in 2018, folks? Yeah, interesting to see the snapshot and to see the decline over just in the last 3 years, 2 years.
John? 2019.
2018.
Thank you for your comments.
Yep. That's just commenting, just noting. But it's good to have the snapshot. Be interesting to see what 2021 brings up.
I'd just like to add, statistics are an interesting branch of maths, and yes, it is a small sample size, particularly of people who have actually experienced interaction with the council. But as a wise old man said to me once, you don't drink the whole bowl of soup just to taste it, you only need a teaspoon. Okay. Any further comments on statistics or the survey? Sure. Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. That wise old man was my father, by the way. 8.3.5, Instrument of Delegation to the CEO.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. The purpose of this report is to update Council's instrument of delegation to the Chief Executive Officer to align to the Local Government Act 2020 requirements. The previous instrument of delegation to the CEO was approved under the Local Government Act 1989. Both of these acts allow councils to delegate powers, duties and functions under any act to the Chief Executive Officer, except for those powers, duties and functions specified under the relevant Local Government Act that can't be delegated. This enables council to run as an organisation and to run smoothly. Many of those functions that are delegated are then further sub-delegated to enable staff to undertake their duties.
So moved.
Second.
Yes, Councillor Keeble.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's an operational thing that's to keep the business happening. under the new Act, the 2020 Local Government Act.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's just really a reaction, not a reaction, it's a necessary process to the new Government Act 2020 to make sure we keep the business going.
Comment? Questions?
Simple comment that in the removal of the additional powers relating to the COVID-19 pandemic, I just think that that's important to point out, which is on the second page of this, if you Buckley. Removal of I just think that's important to point out because it says here the proposed update to the instrument delegation has removed these additional powers, seeing that we can now meet by Zoom meeting. Thank you.
Point.
All those in favour? 8.3.6, governance rules.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. This report and the one that follows are linked in that they outline requirements under the new Local Government Act 2020. Council is required to develop governance rules before the 1st of September 2020 in accordance with these new requirements. Governance rules must be made in respect to the conduct of council meetings. So this includes the election of the mayor and the deputy mayor, appointments of an acting mayor, the procedures for disclosing conflict of interest, and must also include the election period policy in accordance with Section 69 of the LGA Act 2020. Governance rules will replace that document that is currently adopted, which is the Local Law Number 1 for Council Administration, which was adopted in 2016. The election period policy, which was made under the Local Government Act 1989, will also be replaced by this document. The recommendation is that Council endorse the draft governance rules and release it for public comment, with submissions closing on this on the 14th of August 2020. The revised governance rules, after taking into account those submissions, will be presented to a special council meeting to be held on the 25th of August 2020.
Second.
Councillor Forsyth, Councillor Keeble. Councillor Forsyth.
Just that this is going out for public consultation, as is the next item on the agenda, as is the following item, that as well. So look, anybody who is interested in local government or what have you and how we actually do operate, if you've got any comments, please get involved in the public consultation and for the 14th of August.
Yeah. And I would also say, if you're looking at being a candidate in the elections, this year's elections, these new documents that are coming out are relevant for people to take note of.
And councillors.
Any further comment? Questions? All those in favour? Carried. 8.3.7, governance local law.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. Further to the previous report, development of the governance rules, which takes into account the conduct of council meetings, means that council's existing local law number 1 must now be revoked and new provisions made for the use of council's common seal and any offences relating to governance rules. Therefore, the recommendation on this report is that council endorses the proposed governance local law for the purpose of seeking public submissions in accordance with Section 223 of the Local Government Act. Now, I understand that this is different from the previous report that I read out, and that's because we have different provisions coming into force across the different acts at different times, and a local law is still required to be governed, to be public, have public submissions under that section of the Act, whereas the previous one does not. And also to endorse the community impact statement, which will accompany the proposed governance local law for the purpose of community consultation, to provide public notice of his intention to make a governance local law, inviting these public submissions, again with submissions closing on the 14th of August, and forming a committee consisting of councillors, should anyone wish to be heard in support of their submission, and we will present the reviewed governance local law for 2020 and the results of any submissions for council for adoption at that special council meeting I discussed.
Forsyth, Councillor Janus.
Same comments as the previous one. Again, if you're interested in all in this stuff, please put in public submission.
add to the conversation there, I think Councillor Keeble said it's for those intending to run for council, it's a good opportunity to run through that document or those documents and have a say and get yourself familiar with how council operates.
I do have Councillor.
I would just point out that this is the Governance Local Law 2020, not the Local Law Act that we discussed and went through last year, which included other aspects. So if you're out there wondering, they've got different topics. So I just wanted to point that out.
Very, very different.
And thanks for the clarification, Councillor Keeble. I do have a question about the public submissions. Will the requirement to seek public submissions under the Local Government Act 1989 sunset eventually, or will he always have to?
No, it does sunset.
Yep.
It sunsets in accordance with the provisions that it relates to. So Section 223 has already been repealed as a clause. However, because the local law provision of the new Act does not come into force until mid-next year, a little bit later than mid-next year, the provisions under 1989 continue to apply to that provision until it comes into force. So it's just for the next
this time round.
For the next 12 months, we have a little bit of brain teasers to work out which part of the Act apply at which point, which parts have been repealed and not. So
your reference to brain teasers. Thank you. Any further comment, questions? Take it to the vote. Those in favour. 8.3.8.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. This is the public transparency policy. This is another new requirement of the Local Government Act 2020, which requires us to have developed a public transparency policy and have it adopted before 1st of September 2020. This report is to present a draft public transparency policy to Council prior to the period of public consultation. The recommendation is that Council endorses the draft public transparency policy, releases it for a period of public consultation with submissions closing on the 14th of August, and we will present that policy on the 25th of August 2020. To provide some context, the public transparency policy outlines what information is available to our customers, to ratepayers, should they require it. It breaks the information down into three separate processes. One is information that is freely available to all and is available on our website. What information would be available should people request it, and they could come to our office and request information that would be made available, and which information is deemed confidential. For that information that is not in the first two categories, the Freedom of Information Act applies, and people are free to apply for that documentation, and it will be assessed under the provisions of that Act with those exemptions potentially.
So moved.
Keeble, seconder.
Second.
This is public transparency policy as a result of the new Local Government Act 2020. It's certainly not saying that the Alpine Shire has not been transparent in its dealings with its ratepayers, far from it, in my experience, but it is actually putting what we do into words so that people can see what they are entitled to, information they're entitled to access, and how they are to access that information.
Forsyth?
Yes, I think it's just indicative of the way government acts are now being done, a lot more along the lines of ISO type things, where they are less prescriptive in some instances and have to be a little bit more interpretive of what you do. However, in this particular one, if you scroll down slightly more, just into the background area there, the important lines in this particular one, like
Apply for anything under FOI, so anything they are interested in getting a copy of and having, and there are various things under the FOI Act that may deem something confidential. So should it be determined that the request is mostly due to a neighbourhood dispute potentially, and releasing that information would put somebody in danger, then that is a reason why we might not release it. Should the information be exempt under the trade practices or trade secrets, then we might not release it. Should it be of a certain commercial nature that is exempt, we might not release it. So FOI Act has a series of reasons why it might be deemed to be not able to be released under that Act, but it's a very thorough process to review that. So every document that's requested under FOI is searched for and found, and sometimes these requests can be quite large in terms of that broad. Every document is found, and every document is reviewed line by line to see what exemptions there are, and if we can possibly release it, we do, and if we can release it with redactions, we do. So where something is considered exempt, we would potentially redact that component only and release the rest of the document. So it's quite an in-depth process, the FOI process.
A fee for FOI?
There is a fee. It's a regulated fee, and it is very low.
Comments, questions? All those in favour? 3.9 planning application. I'm not going to read the number out. To a Riverside Avenue, Bright.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. This report refers to Planning Application 5, 2019-161-1, being 2A Riverside Avenue, Bright. The proposal is for the buildings and works for the construction of 3 dwellings on a lot. The proposal in more detail. The proposal is for the development of 3 double-storey, 3-bedroom townhouses with a communal underground car parking area. The townhouses are proposed to be orientated north-south within the lot, with access attained from a shared accessway along the eastern boundary of the site, connecting Riverside Avenue to the north. The works proposed can be considered to be a higher density development, with 46% of the site to be occupied by the proposed buildings and a further 27% of impermeable surfaces, leaving 27% of the site as permeable. Private open space areas are to be located on the south side of the development. The application was advertised in accordance with Section 52 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. Notice of the application was sent to landholders and occupiers of 15 surrounding parcels of land. A sign was also displayed on the subject land. A single objection was received to the proposal. The details of this objection can be found within the planning assessment component of this report, along with the assessing officer's commentary on the issues raised.
So moved.
Oh. I'll second it then.
Councillor Janus. Forsyth.
Right, I was part of the planning forum on this particular one, and we have heard from the objector, and we've also heard from the owner and the applicant, who happens to be the design consultant involved. Whilst this complies with the majority of planning requirements under our current planning rules, I think it's a very, very tight bill on this particular site. Whilst it complies with the planning rules and it's gone through with a fine-tooth comb, I would probably just question now, and this is for future, flagging it, I think, probably for the future, that 20% only, like under this particular planning zone area, there is only a 20% requirement for permeable, which means grassed areas or open garden beds, what have you. Now, that may be okay in the middle of a very large city, but I'm wondering whether Bright in particular needs these type of developments, and whether or not we possibly should have within our planning permits or planning policy that there should be maybe at least get out on a bit of grass in now and then. Apart from that, it basically complies with most of the requirements. I don't think there's going to be a lot of light in the backyard in the winter time because of the orientation of it, but yeah. Say on that.
Janice?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having visited the site, I agree with what Councillor Forsyth is saying here, and I suppose looking at the livability of the area and surrounding, and not just people living in these type of constructions, it's the neighbouring areas as well. Personally, it doesn't bode that well with me, and listening, I was a part of that planning forum as well. I suppose the overriding thing is that it doesn't breach any rules or regulations under the planning permits. The objector, I don't believe we've heard from the objector since. Is that correct, Ms Cook?
I don't believe so.
Yes. The objector wanted the Alpine Shire Council to give a full indemnity to them going forward with no time limit should one of the trees that are on the boundary cause some sort of problem with the proposed building area. I really don't think that is something that council can, and it's something I've taken into consideration. I think it is something that we just can't do. And reading the arborist's report there are conditions set upon the builder to take certain actions in relation to trees. I'm confident the fact that our Alpine Shire Council team have also looked and done an overview of that arborist's report. I'm in favour of the recommendation per se, because there's nothing there to say that the builder has done anything correct, or the applicant in relation to our laws. But I certainly agree with Councillor Forsyth. Perhaps for the new council going forward, it might be an area that needs another revamp, perhaps, when we look at how we want some of our townships to be developed. Not discouraging development in our area, but perhaps might not necessarily sit well with what.
Napstein.
Yep.
May I just make a comment here? My question was maybe we need to look at the Alpine plans, and this point was made, Councillor Forsyth made the point that it ticks all the boxes, it's compliant, it fulfills conditions.
Closer to the microphone. You've got to bring the microphone closer to you so it's on. Yep.
Thank you. It was stuck to the table. Yes, I hate these, and I've noticed in the last couple of planning objections that came to us, there's a perception that we need more accommodation in Bright, and that's come from two different developers, and I'm thinking the wrong message is going out. But it is what it is.
The comment, questions? Councillor Forsyth.
There are 38 requirements on the planning for this planning permit and conditions. And this is before we even get to a building permit. So I would really like to see that the Alpine Shire can make sure that these general conditions are actually met. I mean, some of them are there's some very prescriptive ones. They're very detailed. It would just really give me a lot of confidence if I could know that this was going to actually happen.
If I may, Councillor Nicholas, Councillor Forsyth, you'll be happy to hear that we actually have our first compliance officer starting in Alpine Shire this month. So the role of that role will be really to have a look at compliance to permit conditions, and also to have a look at where we potentially have developments that don't have the appropriate permits in place. And that will be he's very experienced compliance officer and be setting up that function for us. So.
For me, what are the penalties that or the sticks that are available to a compliance officer?
It depends on what the compliance issue is. There is always, we try very hard to work with people at getting them to understand their permit conditions or apply for permits if they haven't appropriately applied for permits, and to have that conciliatory function within the community. However, there is VCAT as an option, and enforcement penalties. There are penalty infringement notices, depending on what the penalty is, which are fines, basically, or we would take cases to VCAT. Yep.
Hopefully we never have to take any. Hopefully we can negotiate our way through it.
We take a number every year, but with a dedicated resource, we have the resourcing to enforce compliance on a wider range of issues.
Questions? Get to the vote. 2A Riverside Avenue. Favour. I've been in a very hard situation here because I think the arguments are very strong for and against. Vote for.
Call for a division.
Yep. Those in favour? Against?
Just sorry, Madam Chair. Mr. Buckley needs to note
names.
Names and.
Thank you.
His first apprenticeship at this role.
Quite.
Congratulations.
The first call of division, Councillor?
Yeah, but only you're getting handy with the division.
It's the councillor to my right.
Right with the names, Mr. Buckley? Have you recorded the names appropriately? I have. Thank you. Okay, so we move to the next item, which is Assembly of Councillors. Oh, go all the way down here. The question is that the summary of Assemblies of Councillors for June 2020 be received.
Moved.
Keeble and Councillor Forsyth. General business from my Councillor Napstein.
Okay. Just with COVID and the restrictions and the impacts of visitors that we're having to write, I've noticed just over the last couple of days, I've seen a few altercations between locals and I was subject to one. I think people are getting a little fractured with the conditions and the restrictions and all of that. And you have to be patient because this seems like it's going to go on for quite some time. Can I please just ask people to be a little bit patient with staff in supermarkets and retail outlets? I did see, and it turned out to be a local in an altercation with a staff member at one of the supermarkets today, and it was starting to get a little bit willing. Please just take a breath, and the staff and everybody are doing their best to accommodate the conditions and further business, so you can't have it both ways. And visitors, please just socially distance. Thank you.
Forsyth, no. Councillor Janice.
None.
Councillor Pierce. Councillor Keeble.
Look, I was going to say a little bit what Councillor Napsheim was saying before. I think, we're in a case now where we have school holidays. There are people travelling around. There's obviously new restrictions coming in this afternoon. People just need to be mindful. What was that catchphrase by an ex-councillor? Courtesy is catching. So be polite to everyone. Make sure you do the right thing. Yep.
Item 11, motions for which notice has previously been given. There are none. Item 12, reception and reading of petitions. There are no petitions. Item 13, documents for sealing.
So moved.
And
Councillor Janice and Councillor Keeble. There ends the public part of our meeting. Onto a confidential matter. So, who are watching, listening, we won't be coming back to the live to the public. Thank you very much. A mover and a seconder to move us into confidential.
So moved.
So Napstein, Councillor Janice.